What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Limited Resources. This is episode number 279. My name is Marshall. I'm one of your Limited Resources, and joining me this time in a seedy hotel in Brussels, I've got Brian David Marshall. BDM, welcome to the show.
Hey, well, good to be back.
Yeah, we love having you on. I wanted to bring you on. So Luis is busy in some
Wait, what?
Testing house.
I was told Luis would be here.
No, he couldn't make it, so you're stuck with me for an hour. And he's testing for the Pro Tour, of course, and that takes priority here as we want to make sure that he gets all the info he can get about the draft format and stuff, and he'll share that with us after we're done.
He doesn't want to give away the secrets of drafting seven drops to.
That part he's already given away. But it is interesting because even if he came on the show, there's a lot of things that he couldn't talk about.
Yeah, of course,
because of the PT testing. So, but I know BDM that you have been drafting this format a lot.
Yeah, I
have as well.
Since the minute it came out online, I started just jamming drafts.
Me too.
I probably jammed in like 4 or 5 drafts yesterday here.
Yeah, there's a lot of lobby drafts happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm probably 15 to 18 drafts deep.
That sounds about where I'm
going to have more than a lot of the pros under my belt by the time the Pro Tour starts, I think. And I wanted to get your thoughts on the initial stuff, some of the cards that have stood out to you, that kind of thing. Now, before we get into all that, I want to mention, of course, our sponsor, ChannelFireball.com. They bring you limited resources every single week. One of the great things about CFB, my favorite thing, is all the free content that you get on their site. If you want to get better at Magic, you can go on to ChannelFireball.com, and you're going to find articles by some of the best players in the world, and even videos by a lot of the best players in the world, and also a few from me. And you can certainly improve your game. It makes it for a nice companion to a podcast like Limited Resources if you're of the mindset of trying to improve, get better at this game. And of course, they have a full selection of singles, sealed product, and everything like that. GP Vegas. I mourn your your loss there, but there's a website that you can go to. It is GrandPrixVegas.com. You can find the side events. So there's pre-reg. Did you know this, BDM? There's pre-reg for the side events at GP Vegas.
Oh my gosh!
Because they're going to sell out. Now this is mainly for the special side events.
For the Modern Masters
two
side events.
That's right. And so that's kind of the main thing because they always throw in a bunch of extra stuff for those. But anyway, if you're planning on going to GP Vegas, pre-register. Do not mess around with that. You want to make sure you get your seat before that happens.
Grand Prix Chiba. Sold out.
What happened there?
They put up registration, 4,000 player cap, sold out in under a day.
I couldn't believe. I saw people tweeting about that, and I could not believe it. It was by the end of the day, it was capped.
Someone joked that Justin Bieber was the prize in a side event. They're like how do you get 4,000 Japanese players?
That's unbelievable. Anyway, so check that out. And also Channel Fireball is going to be running another show in Europe where BDM and I are right now. This one's in Copenhagen, though, and you can find information about that at gpcopenhagen.com. If you want to support the show more directly, you can do so via the Limited Resources Patreon. You get a bunch of cool perks, and you can do anything you want as far as dollar amount goes per episode, and you can find details for that at lrcast.com. Now, one thing that I'm starting with this show, BDM, you get to be here for the first one.
Sweet.
Is we like to answer questions at the beginning of the show. There was a stretch when Brian Wong was on here where we would take, like an email question or something that we had found and try to kind of make it a thing that we'd answer on the show. Nothing too elaborate normally. Just sort of a quick question, but sort of stay in touch with the listeners and stuff like that. And I thought, I've been trying to think of ways to better use the Patreon and better to give back to the people that are on it. And one of the ideas I came up with /stole was to answer a question from a patron. So I put up a post now on the Patreon before every show. So I put it up sometime during the week. And you can go on there and just comment and you can leave a question. And what I do is I'm going to pick one question per week from our patrons. Now, the one I picked this week is from Shane B. And I said a minute ago that these are generally, a little on the quicker kind of like quick hit type question. But I really like this question, and I think that there's a lot going on here. So I decided to pick this one as something that maybe you and I could talk about even a little more, and then we're going to do Crack a Pack, and then we're going to kind of let the conversation flow from there. So here's Shane B's question. By the way, thanks, Shane, for being a patron and also for the question. So he says, as I get more experience playing limited, I've noticed that getting there, he puts that in quotes, meaning getting to the mid to late game and being able to play your powerful bombs, is what wins games more often than simply hoping to curve out perfectly with aggressive creatures. Now I'm going to hold you back for a minute, BDM. But we're going to address that because I think both you and I have a disagreement with that perhaps. But his question, more to the point, is he says, this seems to be a common strategy employed by Marshall, who appears to love a control game until he can take over towards the end. And he's, I'm sure, talking about some of my draft videos. And that is true. I do like to play that game when I can. He says, my weakness, however, is not really understanding how to draft the deck that focuses on getting there. And I get sidetracked by simply trying to have what seems like good creatures with solid stats and abilities versus enabling me to win the long game. How can newer and intermediate players learn to best approach a draft when the format is slow and benefits a more controlling build? So this is sort of a two-parter.
There's a couple parts in there.
He led with a bit of a home run of he's finding it difficult to win and thinking maybe the strategy of curving out with aggressive creatures isn't good. Why don't we address that first?
Well, I mean, this is a very classic piece of Magic advice and the idea of knowing your role. And I think that, if you're going to be an aggressive deck, then you just, you just got to go all out. I was going to say something that rhymed with that, but
yes,
it's understanding what you need to do, understanding like, okay, I'm going to do this, knowing that you have to play with some cards maybe that aren't going to be great as finishers,
Magmatic Chasm.
Exactly the card I was thinking about. Also, I loathe the card Foul Tongue Shriek. Mm-hmm. Right, I loathe it.
Very bad card.
It's just a terrible card.
Yeah.
You know what? There's some decks in this format where it's like, you know what? I need this card. I need a card like this just to get me over the edge. So it's like knowing your role. Like, you know what? If I'm going to do it, sometimes you got to break the rules and play some bad cards. But to me, I think the bigger thing in there is this idea of like, if you're drafting, again, it's a matter of knowing your role. So like if you're going to be like drafting the good cards, as he sort of air quoted around, then it's like, understand. I think the real thing is their in-game play more than drafting, right?
So that goes to his main question, which is how can a newer intermediate player learn to best approach a draft when the format is slow and benefits a more controlling build? But I think you bring up a really valid point here. I mean, he admits, look, I think my decks are fine. Like it seems like he's drafting good cards, which is, that's a big hurdle. Like if you have just average card quality,
I know, and I muddled it up by talking about Foul Tongue Shriek.
No, but that was for the other type. But if you're in a controlling build, I think that's one big step. Now we talk about synergy a lot when it comes to drafting and playing out your draft decks, and that goes more to your point about like the Foul Tongue Shriek. This is a synergy card. Look, I've got a lot of small creatures and not a lot of way to get them through, so this is how I'm going to do that.
Or Magmatic Chasm.
Or Chasm, right. And, but when you're doing the control builds, they are focused generally more on good cards, right? Like good cards are going to hold their own. It's just a matter of having like we call, defensive speed on the show where, you're going to play out a few 2-drops in your control deck, not because you're looking to beat down, because you want to be able to trade for their early stuff.
Right.
You don't always get to just, be alive when you first cast your 4-drop, right? That doesn't always happen. But I think that the point that you were going to makes a lot of sense, which is it's more gameplay related in many scenarios than it is in actually the draft portion. If you feel like you're drafting solid creatures with good curves and decent mana, and you're putting together decks that are good, but for whatever reason the game isn't coming together for you, it could definitely be a gameplay scenario.
So imagine a situation: you have a Dromoko's Warrior that you played on turn 2.
Mm-hmm.
Your opponent, 3/1. Your opponent on turn 3 plays a morph.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's even a little. Let's go even a little further on in the game. That's the board state, right? You've traded, something's happened. You have a Sandblast in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Your opponent, you have other stuff to do to develop your board. Your opponent has some mana to do stuff available. You attack your Dromoka's Warrior into their morph, and they block. And you'll see a lot of people will snap off that Sandblast right there, right?
Yep.
And the reality is your Dromoka's Warrior more important than your Sandblast?
Right.
And, a lot of times it's not.
It's not.
Right? And also a lot of times what you can do is say, okay, you block, okay. And you say, okay. right? And then they go trick.
Yes.
They go center soul.
Yes.
They go, that's
pump spell.
Pump spell, right?
Spell. Yeah.
Or unmorph my guy, or anything, and then suddenly your Sandblast becomes that more valuable. Then
it's a 2-for-1.
Right.
Now you're winning.
A 2-for-1, or you've just like made them use all this mana and their turn. And
I love that example. That's it. So I had a game yesterday, and I generally consider myself pretty good at figuring this out. How important? Because look, a beginning player, some intermediate players will snap off that Sandblast.
Correct.
Right? They'll just be like, well, there's a creature, it's attacking me. I have the mana and removal spell. And they're like, I know what removal spells are for. Killing creatures. Kill it.
Right.
And that is on its base, logically sound.
And
But
there's
that's
times
just not how you win.
And
there
there's
are
times
when
it's
you
correct.
do it. It's true.
Right? There's times where you're like, well, I know this is what I'm going to be doing for the next 4 turns.
Right.
Because look at my hand.
Right.
And I'm going to be tapping, and there are times that it's correct. But there's times that you'd rather trade your Dromoka's Warrior for that creature than your Sandblast for that creature, right? Like in this format where there's dragons and there's flying creatures that you can't deal with and, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Even something stupid like an elusive Spellfist.
Yep.
In the late game that you're like, wow, I don't have an answer for a stupid elusive Spellfist.
Yeah. So the scenario like that I found myself in one of our side drafts yesterday, and this is a mistake. I think it was a mistake. Is my opponent had a Dromoka's Warrior and I had a Morph. So it was the other way around. I was a control player though. And I don't remember exactly what my Morph was, but it was one that was desirable in the late game. It was one that maybe it was Monastery Lore Masters, something that...
Was it the Silumgar guy, the 2/3?
Could have been.
I think it was.
It was something. And my opponent attacked with Dromoka's Warrior, and my opponent had shown green and white mana. And I decided to block with my Morph to save my life total and to make a trade. And on the surface, that seemed fine. I was a control deck. I wanted the game to go long. I love it if my opponent even uses a combat trick there, because I'm like, sure, there goes your whole entire turn. I lose my creature, fair enough, but I have more of those. And you've just got this one toughness thing. But I looked at my hand, and I had... It was either an Updraft Elemental or a Wandering Tomb Shell, some 1/6 or something like that.
That sounds like Wandering Tomb Shell.
Yeah, and I'm just like, looking at it, and it's just, that matches up so well against 3/1 that I think it would have been better against green-white to trade a little bit of life, decent amount, 3 there, and then just play my Wandering Tomb Shell and be like, go ahead, attack into me, I dare you. And sure, maybe the same combat trick gets it. There's a lot of dynamics that we could talk about here. But the key thing that I generally think I'm pretty good at, but failed here, is recognizing how my cards match up against theirs. And at that point, when you have unconditional removal, effectively unconditional like Sandblast in an aggressive matchup, or a card like Reach of Shadows, those become gold. Those become the way that you kill that elusive Spellfist, that stupid, annoying creature that will kill you eventually. The ones on the ground, the 2-drops and stuff, you just have to trade your creatures for those. That's what your creatures are here for. That's why you're doing it.
And I think a lot of people also have a fantasy of what their Morph's going to be turn face up.
Yes. You just said it downstairs when we were in the lobby, but, if you're playing the game, you take your beats, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes, you have to block with your really sweet Morph and just trade it for their stupid 2/2, because, the times when I find myself doing that are often when I've got my 3rd land on the battlefield, but not my 4th land in the hand, and my grip looks really nice. I've got a card draw spell and a bomb and a 5-drop, and it's like, if this game, I try to say this on my videos whenever I can too, and this is something that I say in my head quite a bit. And it goes back to an episode of the show that Luis and I did called Having a Plan. And it's all about having a plan. And the thing I say to myself,
having a plan, knowing your role, it's all about just understanding the implications.
What I'll ask myself though while in the game is I say, if this game goes long, does it favor me? Am I going to win? Does it look like I'm going to win? And if I look at my hand and I've got a card draw spell, a 5-drop, and my 6-drop bomb, and I've got 3 lands on the battlefield, and I need to find lands later, and I've got one of my best creatures morph face down, Shore Crasher Elemental or whatever. It's a real card. And my opponent's attacking their dumb 3/1 Dromoka's Warrior, I'm just snapping it off. Right. Because this game goes long and my opponent can't keep up.
Right.
So
I also think there's something about, and this may fly in the face of some stuff you believe, but I think there's something about personal.
That's why I have you here.
I think there's something about personal play style, right? And there's players. We got Craig Jones on the coverage team this weekend, and Craig is an inveterate aggro player. That's all he wants to play.
Yeah,
and it's what he knows how to play, and he knows how to get damage through. I'll run into Magic players at tournaments, at just side events, who are drafting decks, and they're trying to draft decks that they see Luis draft. Right? And Luis is so good a player that it doesn't, I know. What he does not work for other people all the time, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, Luis knows how to win. He knows how to get to the point where his hexplate golems are in play. That's not a play style that suits everyone. Right. And so there is a comfort zone that you have with drafting where you're like, okay, I know I need, and you sort of have this file of cards that are in the I'm an aggro player. I need my magnetic chasms. I need to figure out where my foul tongue shrieks or my glaring aegis or my, whatever the card is that lets me sneak in that last point of damage. Totally. Or you're the control player and you're like, okay, this is how I'm gonna get them.
Yep.
Right. This is my trump card. This is how I'm gonna get to the point where this giant stupid 7-drop is just gonna dominate the board, and you're just gonna get so frustrated.
That's right.
Playing against it that you're gonna get sloppy.
No, that's a real thing. I mean, I have cards like Sandstorm quite high, for example, on my list. I love that card. And
Sandblast?
Sandblast, excuse me. Sandstorm's a different card.
Yeah.
Sandblast,
not as good, but fine sometimes.
Very high, for example, where I think other people have it more in the middle to high. And my reasoning is I like to block.
Yeah.
I like to be like, block, do something.
Right.
Flip up your morph, play a combat trick.
Right.
I dare you. Because I want to trade.
Right. You want to be able to react to what they do.
Exactly.
And if they want to trade, you'll take the trade.
I'll take the trade. They're like, sure. I'm like, no problem, done. Because you know what? This still kills your big dragon later, too.
Correct.
So, all right, BDM, why don't we, and by the way, thanks again for the question there, Shane B. I do appreciate it.
And by the way, I'm not saying insulting in terms, but like, I think if you're saying you're a beginning or intermediate player, I mean, think just more about what's happening and where your cards are. Like, the most common thing I see is just people snapping off a Sandblast or snapping off an Ultimate Price or just whatever their removal spell is on the first thing.
Yeah.
And you're like, yes. As a player who's been around for a while and knows the value of your 5 removal spells that you might have in your deck or 3 removal spells you might have in your deck. Depending on
thank God.
You're like, oh my God, all right, 1 down.
Yeah, exactly. For my dumb 2-drop.
That's a dragon that's going to live later.
Yeah.
So anyway.
But anyway, if you guys want to contribute to that, you can go onto the Patreon, and then I'll put a post up for each episode, and you can write in your questions.
So if I want to get you and Luis to answer a question, I've got to support the Patreon?
Yeah, you can just ask on the show when you're on it. All right, let's crack.
I'd rather support the podcast.
All right, let's crack a pack here, BDM, and see what we're looking at.
All right,
hold on. Oh yeah, that's good. Give you a little whiff of that.
It doesn't smell like one of those German packs. Those German packs smell
they
weird.
Were waxy, yeah.
They were weird.
I wasn't in on that. All right, first pick. Dromoka Warrior.
I like Dromoka Warrior
Me too.
a lot.
We were just talking about Dromoka Warrior. You got the Warrior synergies going on, but also, interestingly, you used it in your control deck as a blocker in our scenario, and Dromoka Warrior does a great job of blocking.
Yeah, trades up a little bit. There's suddenly a lot of 2/3s. In this more format, and being able to get those 2/3s is pretty good.
And also just attacks.
I really like red white. By the way, I've been winning. It's probably my second most winning.
Wow.
Archetype in this draft format.
How aggressive is it?
Super aggressive.
Just beat down.
Super aggressive. I'm just like playing I'll have 2 or 3 2/1s for 1 in the deck. Multiple 3/1s, 2/2s, and then just tricks. Mm-hmm. I had a deck with 4 Sandblasts.
Oh God. Offensive Sandblast?
Yeah, offense. Those were. I was snapping those off early and often, contrary to what I was saying earlier.
Our next card is obviously Wandering Tomb Shell. We'll put those right next to each other. This will remind me not to use, not to trade off my good morphs for Dromoka Warrior when I'm holding a Tomb Shell. This next card's impressed me quite a bit, BDM. I wonder if it goes in that deck you're talking about. It seems a little more home in a green-red shell, but it's Sabertooth Outrider. That's the 4-mana 4/2 with Trample, and if you've got Formidable, and when it attacks, you get first strike.
Yeah, you know where I've seen this card really shine?
Where's that?
I saw that yesterday. Someone had this was the late game in a Dash deck. And so this was on the board, and this would be like one of the only creatures on the board, and like trading off some stuff early, and then spinning Warbrute, and this guy just coming in every turn.
Sprinting Warbrute.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes. Oh, wow. That's 9, and this guy gets first strike.
Yeah. It was like... I
think I might have been on the bad end of that.
Yeah, and like, you were on the bad end of that. I'm sorry. That was Greg was doing that to you. He just you guys had just traded... You were like on your back heel, and you traded a bunch of stuff, and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm trading for this crappy card.
Yeah.
Right? But you were really low, and then his late game was you were just in the abyss.
Yes. I was deep into the abyss. Yeah. This card's actually just really impressed me. One thing about it, I think that when you first see it, it's hard sometimes to separate yourself out from the previous format.
Yeah.
And debilitating injury, no, not so much.
No, and defeat. This is really where you see defeat not be debilitating injury.
That's right.
Right, like I love defeat. I think I think it's a fine card, but it is no debilitating injury.
Totally. Next is Dromica Dunecaster. This is the tapper, the white mana 0/2, and you can pay 1 and a white tap to tap a ground creature.
I thought this card was going to be better.
Me
than
too.
It's been.
It has gone. I had it out high. Realized at some point that it was 1 and a white and not white. So that was a step down. This was before I drafted, though, so thankfully, or maybe my first draft or whatever. And then it kind of just trickled downward even a little further. It's really like I actually don't even start it usually.
I don't either. I had this in one of my top 5 commons early on in the.
I would have too.
Just looking at the set. The problem is it doesn't get flyers.
No.
Which is fine, right?
Yeah,
there's plenty
it's not quite as good in the dragon themes,
but there's plenty of stuff like on the ground, right? There's plenty of just fatties and dashed creatures, and there's lots of stuff going on for it to do. The thing is, the format is a little faster than we've gotten used to over the last 2 iterations of this block and limited.
Totally, it's not a blazing fast format, but there are quick decks that can put the heat on.
Yeah, and this guy's
way too slow.
Yeah, it's just like the tax of leaving 2 mana open is pretty difficult. I think there's some decks where it really shines.
I think it shines against some decks. I don't think it shines in any deck. But if I'm playing green red, sign me up. I will play this card. Tread Upon is next. That's aka Elmer's Revenge. It's the +2/+2 and trample for 1 and a green and instant speed. This has been a
premium card for me.
Premium.
Yeah.
I was just going to say a solid combat.
I mean, well, I mean, that's...
Yeah. I mean, it's just good, right?
Yeah. Right now I have sorted just, let's keep them in 2 piles. I have, cards I'm considering.
Okay.
At first picking, I would consider both Dromoka's Warrior and Tread Upon so far.
Well, you are looking aggressive.
I
would consider the Outrider.
I don't have the Outrider as...
You're not there yet.
I mean, I like him.
But not on this level.
I don't... I'd rather have either of those 2.
What about Updraft Elemental, the 1/4 flying for 3?
What Updraft Elemental?
What up? Guys, goes on the bottom.
I
think he's mediocre.
He's fine.
He's fine, right? Like I have not been impressed by it at any point. I would tend to think that it's 24th card-ish at this point.
Yeah.
I'm not... I liked it a little more when I first saw it, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, you'll play it in some cases.
Yeah. I've never found the spot where I'm just like, this card's great. Like, even against Dromoka Warrior, I'm like,
Yeah.
Ojutai's Breath is next, so that's the freeze one, 2 and a blue instant. It taps a creature, doesn't untap, and then you get to rebound it.
I'd put that card in the middle here.
Okay, so
that's like a card I'm thinking about. I'm like, man, maybe there's no way this is coming back.
Yeah.
How bad do I want? Like, maybe depending on my deck in pack 2, like I would pick this first, like depending on where I was or what position.
The only deck I've really been happy with this card, and I think it's a good card. Like the effect is very solid. But the only deck that I've really been happy with it is blue-white.
Yes, because that's exactly where.
You too, yeah, because I can get things going in the air and make that a real thing.
You're just racing in the air.
It's a clock, yeah. And this just locks down
Misthoff
the ground creatures forever.
and Ojutai Interceptors.
By the way, I have a little list of cards I want to throw at you after we're done with the Crack-A-Pack here. And Misthoff Kirin's on it.
Yeah, that card's just awesome.
A bunch of cards that I've just been like, that card's a little better than it looks.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And then you just need to tap their stupid, elk gang.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of that going on, too. Custodian of the Trove is next. It's the 2/5 defender for only 3 colorless mana, but it enters the battlefield tapped.
Seems like the card should be fine.
I'm sure I'll end up playing it. I haven't yet.
I haven't yet either,
yeah,
exactly.
Put it on the bottom pile for now. Summy P! He's back, now with Dragons. 4/3 for 4, Summit Prowler. This guy already I thought was performing quite well, and now he's really good.
Yeah.
I think this card's really good.
I do too.
Yeah,
I'd put him on the top. I would consider him.
All right,
especially when you're looking to get to formidable.
Yeah.
This guy gets you halfway there on turn 4.
Yeah.
You may have played 2-3 power creatures over the first 3 turns of the game. If in green red,
easy,
and then you're there.
Yeah.
So
totally. No, he's great. Speaking of formidable.
Ooh.
Angry Elmer and his friends has arrived. Stampeding Elkherd, that's of course the 5/5 for 5 in green, and which is already solid enough. And then when it attacks, if you've got formidable, everything you have gets trampled.
This card's
been premium.
This card has shot. I mean, I asked people the other day on Twitter. I was like, look, I've been just playing blue-black. I've been playing white-red. I haven't drafted any green cards. I'm just forcing green. I'm like, I need to draft green. I just need to. What are the cards that compel you to be green? Like what, if you've been out there, and Stampeding Elkherd. I said non-rares because even though people still tell you rares.
Of course they do.
I'm like, I know Sirac. Yes, if I'd opened a Sirac the Hunt caller, I would have been green.
Yes. But it was this and the fight card, right?
Stampeding Elkherd, Epic Confrontation, Tread Upon was a card people talked about.
Really?
What's Press the Advantage? Mm-hmm. Is another card.
+2 and trample.
2 creatures.
That instant speed.
That card's really good.
Yeah, that's one I haven't actually played yet. Pro Tour photographer Craig Gibson, also a listener to the podcast.
Yeah.
He was playing, and I think it's an uncommon, and I haven't played it yet. And I'm just like, oh, it's a sorcery, I think. Because I remember Windborne Charge from Zendikar, which was a sorcery, and it turns out that one's not.
Yeah.
And he's like, attack, and I'm like, thinking in my head, I'm like, oh man, I would have played that here. I think you just win or whatever. And I look at the card, because I didn't want to say anything because he was in the game, and I'm like, oh, good play, Greg. Let him block first. You've got instant speed.
Yeah, Stampeding Elkherd is that's right now, like, I'm going to even edge that up and ahead of any of the other cards we've picked.
Sarkon's Triumph is next. That's the instant speed 2 and a red dragon tutor. You get to search up a dragon. I have not found this good enough yet. Even with a couple of good dragons, I'm still not that interested in it.
It's fine. I think if you have
how many do you need? 3?
Well, I mean, I think if you have 3, you probably need it less.
That's what I was thinking. But
I think if you have one, but if you have one really good dragon,
oh no way, dude! You draw both of them.
Yeah, that's true.
You just lost the game because you played. I think the card's not that good.
What if you had I guess you need 2 dragons. It's probably the right number.
Yeah, and then
you need N to be 1 greater than the number of
definitely
Sarkon's Triumphs you have.
I just think that card's bad.
Oh no! Now I don't know what to do.
Who's hungry?
A roast.
Got a roast cooking here. So 1 and a red sorcery, 5 damage to a non-flyer.
I might take roast here.
Yeah, roast and Stampeding Elkherd are definitely the top of my picks right now. I think roast is better, but I think it's close.
Yeah.
Our next uncommon is Ojutai Monument. These are uncommon.
Yeah.
They don't pop up that often. There's not that many decks that want them, but when they have,
they're fine.
I've lost to them. I've beat people with them where I'm like, I just set up a turn for 8.
Yeah.
I've got a 4-power flyer sort of, looking to close out the game, but not really doing a great job of it. And then the monument just jumps to life and kills him.
I had Artaka's Monument in the deck with Dragon Lord Artaka, which is 7, where I'm like, man, I really want to get to 7.
Oh, yes.
And
you just win most of the time that you resolve Dragon Lord Artaka.
Right. Yeah. And so...
I like that.
And it was just like, oh wow, and look, I get to,
by the way,
I get to swing here.
Yeah, but they're not high picks.
No.
They're just okay.
They're cards that you want dependent on, 20 picks in the draft. You're like, oh, you know what I really need.
But the good news is they seem to filter down to the people that want them.
Yeah.
Right?
If you want one, it's going to be there for you.
Right.
Probably even in your colors.
Yes. All right. Our rare.
All right.
Bloodchin Fanatic. Ooh. So this is the 1 black for a 3/3 orc warrior, and you can pay 1 and a black and sacrifice another warrior, which is sad because you can't sacrifice itself. But if you do that, target player loses X life, and you gain X life, where X is the sacrificed creature's power. This card's very solid. It's a 3/3 for 3, which is above the curve in this format. You don't see too many of those rolling around. It's a warrior. So it has some warrior synergies. And if you happen to have some other warriors, mainly in a black-white warrior build, Dromica Warrior we saw earlier, you can get in a bunch of damage early with combat tricks removal and efficient creatures, and then you have a finishing plan. It's a good card. It's solid. I have never been completely mind blown by it, but I think it's good. I think it deserves a spot in the top 3 here.
It does, and one of the things that's really nice about that card is that you can sort of take this. Passing a Dromica Warrior is not a huge signal, right? Especially if you're going to be passing these other cards.
Yeah, if you take Bloodshin Fanatic and pass Roast and Stampeding Elkherd,
right.
Those are signals.
You've got 2 people, clear of you on black-white. Yeah. And the thing is, if you can sort of just put your flag in black-white, just by taking those cards through the first 2 packs, you can table Harsh Sustenance in pack 3.
Easily. If you're... Those dual colored cards, it's a very simple question. Is there somebody that wants it or not?
Right.
Before, you would see people moving into the colors, splashing for colors. The question was much...
There's very little splashing. There's very little splashing.
Yeah, before it was does somebody want this or not? And then the answer into this branched out tree of does somebody need removal? Does somebody have a random dual land?
Right.
It's all these... Now it's just are you white-black specifically? No? All right, then you don't want it. And it just goes around the table, and there's usually going to be the one person that wants it.
So, early on in drafts where I'm trying to, if we were drafting right now downstairs, I would probably take the Bloodshin Fanatic.
Because you want to know?
Because I want to know, because I want to attempt to force that. I want to see, can I just count on getting 2 late Harsh Sustenances because I take this card here? I mean, obviously the cards might not be there.
Right.
But, I found Black-White Warriors to be more of a good cards deck.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
This is one of them.
And this is definitely one of them, and it gives you some reach. And I think the real, you're sitting down at the Pro Tour tomorrow. The pick order here is Roast, Stampeding, Elkherd, then Bloodshin Fanatic.
That's exactly my pick order.
Right now. But I would probably, in a draft, or especially still early in the format, just take a flyer. I think the reward on the Bloodshin Fanatic is so high, and that you could just have such a nice synergistic deck and really feast on being the opposing color pair guy in pack 3.
But you think Roast is the pick just on where you're at? I do too.
I do. I mean, I love
between Stampeding Elkherd and Roast for you?
What's that?
How close is it between Roast and Stampeding Elkherd right now?
It's pretty close, but again, we talked about it before. We said the idea of how many premium removal spells are you going to have in your deck?
Yeah.
5?
5? I mean,
five.
I think you're going to have 5 premium.
I mean, you might get 5 good ones, right? You could end up red-black and, have a Roast. You could have, a Wild Slash, a Reach of Shadows, a Flatten.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can end up at 2 defeats. You know what I mean? You can end up with this deck that has a little arsenal of removal. But even then, even the black-red deck.
Is still your best one.
It's still your best one, exactly. It's just fantastic. And, Stampeding Elkherd, you have other shots at it. And even if you don't get the Stampeding Elkherd, there are Summit Prowlers, there are, other fatties, there's, you can just have a plan to come out underneath those decks and then, kill their Stampeding Elkherd. They're tap out for Stampeding Elkherd.
Yeah.
Roast it.
I always make the joke
dash.
Of when I can't decide, I just put him in the arena.
Yeah.
That's
true.
The one other thing about this pack BDM that is really appealing to me is that if we do take Roast, which is my pick, we've got Sabretooth Outrider and Summit Prowler, both have the ability to wheel, and it's not unlikely. One of those coming back would happen quite often.
Yeah, you're probably going to get the Sabretooth as my guess.
Yeah, which I'm quite happy. I like that card a lot. I think it's roughly on par with Prowler. Stampeding Elkherd, if we look at what we could get back from that, there's one Tread Upon, and I just don't think that's coming back.
It's possible that those cards are going to go in that pack. The person next to you is going to take the Tread Upon.
They're going to
take the Stampeding Elkherd. Or if you take the Stampeding Elkherd, someone takes
the
Roast.
If we took the...
We take the Stampeding Elkherd.
Okay.
Person next to you is going to take the Roast.
Yes.
And the person after that could just go Tread Upon.
They could. They'd probably take the Bloodshin Fanatic if they're not in 2 colors yet. Yeah, there's a few different things. But. All right, so I got a few cards to throw at you here, BDM, but I want to just get your idea overall. What have you been drafting? What have you been up to? What's been
So-
working for you? What's your take on the format so far?
Given my druthers,
Which are?
just I want blue-black. I just want to be blue-black.
It's the deck, right? It's the deck of the format, right?
Yeah, that's like, just given like a table full of gasping sea turtles that are going to let me do whatever. You familiar?
Stuffed animals?
No, have you ever watched
That's what Randy calls...
the goldfish equivalent of drafting? Again,
yeah.
If you watch a nature video about the birthing of turtles,
okay.
what happens is
I've seen these.
The old, the mature turtles get to shore. They lay their eggs on the beach.
Yes.
Massive amounts of them.
Yes.
Buried in the sand.
Yes.
And then comes the great hatching.
Okay.
Right? And hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of gasping baby sea turtles are born. And immediately,
These are your opponents?
And immediately they start scurrying for the sea, right?
Yes.
They just want to get to the safety of the sea, right? They just want to win one round so they can get 2 packs.
Oh my God.
Right? And they start climbing over each other and like flapping their little like unformed paws and just like and then the Seahawks arrive.
Oh no!
And they
that's
just start grabbing, not necessarily me, but maybe 1 in 10 of them makes it to the ocean. Like there's a great culling.
I see.
So-
And that's the pre-release. That's how you view.
Yeah. So
pre-release.
against 7 gasping sea
You just
turtles,
described the Magic Online pre-release cycle perfectly.
I would like to be the blue-black deck.
Yeah.
I would like to get past a Youthful Scholar. I'd love to first pick a Vulturous Haven. I'd like to get a third pick Rakshasa Gravecaller. My pre-release deck ruined me. It ruined me for the form. 2 Silumgar Sorcerers, 2 Rakshasa Gravecallers, 2 Palace Familiars, a Dutiful Attendant, a Youthful Scholar.
Forget it.
It's
funny, because we should set the stage here, because BDM and I have very similar tastes when it comes to Magic.
Yeah.
For the most part, we love drafting similar type of decks. I mean, whenever he sends me a deck that he's done, I'm just like, God, I love that deck. He always drafts the stuff that really makes me just like, oh man, this guy gets me, And and we like a lot of the same cards historically as well.
Yeah.
We like to draft similar cube decks. Like we just have very aligned senses when it comes to that kind of thing.
Greediness.
Yes, and value. You're very you deny it, but you are very value conscious. You will take a 2-for-1, like the best of them. But the and blue black plays right into what you and I want to do in a format. Now, as it turns out, we went to the pre-release and both picked blue black, and we both had absurd decks. I talked about mine on the podcast a little bit, but mine was like yours. But all the other cards that you didn't mention, like I had Silumgar.
Yeah,
just.
I did.
Silumgar.
I had a Deathbringer Regent instead.
Yeah, you poor thing. But we were just
have you Deathbringer Regent with a Dutiful Attendant in play?
Well, so I've cast Deathbringer Regent 3 times in the format, and I've never killed other creatures. I'm just like, here, Mahamudi Jinn, deal with it.
Yeah, I actually Deathbringer Regent with a Dutiful Attendant and a Youthful Scholar in play.
I get chills. But the thing is, BDM and I would be doing this even if it wasn't the best strategy necessarily.
Sure.
But what we have both realized sort of after having played a lot of the format now is that, it actually is just the best strategy.
It really is.
Which has this weird reaction on, I think, both of us, which is, it actually makes me a little sad. Because I'm like, now people are going to want to fight me for what I'm doing, and...
Right. It's like people are like, don't you want to do an Innistrad draft? I'm like, no.
No.
I hate Innistrad. I actually hate Innistrad drafting now. I hate it.
See, that's the thing. You hate drafting Innistrad. You love the format. I love the format.
I love the format.
I just wish I could frame it on a wall where it can't be touched by the children anymore. I agree, though. I did a bunch when they flashbacked it, and I'm just like, all right, we're going to spider spawning kids. And it's like, no, definitely not.
No, I'm going to werewolf.
Somebody else is, vampires, blood crazed neonate, your move. It's like you're just crying yourself to sleep. But anyway, I'm on board. I think that blue-black is the de facto best deck of the format. I think it has the most depth, and also, and this is, I think, why at this point in the draft it has reached that stage, it's the most obvious.
Yeah.
Right? It's just like, oh, I can exploit things. And then, like, they gave us all these toys to exploit. And you're just like, oh, I can piece this together. And even players that don't draft that often or don't think about it much can look at it and be like, oh, there's a Vulturous Aven and there's a Jeskai Sage. I know how to do this. And, you know, they'll just put those two pieces together and start drafting a value deck. And but anyway, from my early experience, it's been hotly contested already.
Right.
Now, the good news is the deck is deep. So even though you're unlikely to get the super ridiculous value exploit that we've just described, you can still pick up enough cards to make a decent deck and still share.
Absolutely. And I think that there's still cards that people are dramatically undervaluing.
Yes, talk to us.
Sidisi's Faithful.
Okay.
So
that's the 04?
It's a triple split card.
Okay, explain.
So it's an 04. Right, it's just a Kraken, you know,
Kraken Hatchling.
Kraken Hatchling, right? It's just like, oh, are you drafting some insanely fast deck? Well, I'm just going to play this on turn 1, and then give myself a couple extra turns to get set up to do what I want to do. Mm-hmm. Oh, I can just play it, sack it to itself, exploit itself, and bounce your stupid Stampeding Elk Herd and fly over or kill you or do whatever I need to do. Just buy myself a turn there, or I can sack my Dutiful Attendant, my Palace Familiar, my Jeskai Sage, my Youthful Scholar, get value, bounce your thing, and have an 04. And the card, I've seen the card go 14th. I've seen it go.
Wow.
I've seen it go 15th. I've seen
15th.
I've had it pass. I'm not even blue, and get the card 15th. Someone took a basic land over it. They're just like, I just don't even want this card.
That's insane.
And like the card is just really good.
I think the card's solid.
It's solid, right?
Yeah.
That's the right way. I'm saying really good. I'm saying really good in relation to where people are picking it. The other card is Gurmag Drowner.
Card is great.
Card is great.
Yeah.
It's just 2/4, 4 mana. Again, you can just cast it as a spell. You could just go Gurmag Drowner, sack it. I like what I have on the board. I don't know, you know, I've never done that, but you could, right? And you know, and filter through the top 4 cards of your library for your best card, right? It's a Sultai Soothsayer.
It puts up, yeah, exactly.
Right.
Puts a bunch in the graveyard.
Puts a bunch in your graveyard. I've done it. I've done it on turn 5 and been able to cast a Gurmag Angler on the same turn. Mm-hmm. You know, where you're just like, you know, trading and doing stuff on those first couple turns, and you're like, oh, and look, 2/4 and a.
You know, it's funny because
and a 5/5.
That card. Like, I'm really proud. I gave it a high rating in our set review. I gave it a higher rating. Like I think I was a letter grade off of Luis, which we're almost never. I gave it like in the B range. And
right. Which is, I think where it
does fall in there. But the interesting thing about it, and I think that the trap that most people fell for, I managed to avoid this one time at least, is comparing it directly to Vulturous Aven. Because Vulturous Aven is better. I think it's better, right?
Sure.
But they're actually ballpark. They're quite close to each other at the end of the day. But it's easy when you see two cards that are similar and go in the same deck to just say, well, this one's better.
Sure.
So I'm going to give it a much better rating in my head. But in reality, like, if you took Vulturous Aven off the face of the planet and I just walked up to you and said, what do you think about this Gurmag Drowner? You'd be like, that card's sweet.
Right.
Like, that's really good. Like, it replaces itself, it filters, it fills up the yard, and it's a good blocker. Like, I'm in.
And Aven's an uncommon. You don't see it that often.
Is it an uncommon?
Isn't it an uncommon?
I think it's a common.
Maybe it's a mythic common because people just don't pass it.
Yeah, it's a common.
Is it really?
Yeah. It's
I guess it's because you just never see them.
That's right, because people figured it out.
Yeah. But, you know,
Yeah.
Oh, no, this is I was talking about Vulturous Aven.
Oh, Vulturous Aven, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, Gurmag Drowner I know is a common because you know, again, you can just get them. But the Vulturous Aven is just, you don't see it as often.
Right.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think it's a.
I'm looking it up because I thought it was, and now, it's a common.
No, it is a common.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You just don't see them. It's that you don't get past them
because they're great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Vulturous Aven is better too. But anyway,
wow, that really felt like an uncommon to me. Just
yes, I'm like
how little I've seen of that.
Yeah, the card's great.
I haven't opened many of them.
And the thing too is that it goes in the aggressive decks perfectly fine, because what happens is, like, everybody can see that it goes in the blue-black deck that wants it. That's easy. But if you're in an aggressive deck with black and you have a Vulturous Aven, your early creatures often outlive themselves on the battlefield. They get in for a few, and then your opponent has a 2/3 and a 3/3 or whatever, and you're like, well, I can't ever attack with that again, and gobble them up. reload the hand, and get an attacker in the air.
And by the way,
it
again,
might even be better in those decks than it is.
By the
in
way,
control.
again, three toughness.
Yep, 2/3s. You mentioned it.
Yeah. Two
Take that,
threes.
Ojutai summons.
2/3s
By the
are
way,
really sweet.
I want to know where you're at on Ojutai summons. So that's it. 3 blue makes a 2/2 flying Djinn, and it has rebound. It's for sorcery speed. Did a draft down at Wizards.
Yeah.
A little work research, and a couple of the guys from R&D were there, and they were kind of picking our brains about what we had done, even though it was like our first draft. But they always want information from the outside perspective, people that don't know the sets and stuff. And the R&D guys were very high on Ojutai summons. They thought it was primo, one of the best. Where are you at on it?
I gotta tell you, I think it's a fine card.
Okay.
I think I don't love it. I feel
hold on, I got to move this picture of Vulture saving off the screen so you don't think about that.
Yeah, I don't love the card.
Okay.
I don't.
Not in love.
It's good, right? Like it's. But the situations where there's so many situations where like you're casting that, you're like, okay, that's your turn 5.
Yeah.
And my turn 5 is Stampeding Elk.
Yes.
Ojutai's Breath I like a lot more than Ojutai's Summons.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I like summons. I've had good success with summons, but I definitely have experienced what you're saying where you face a green-red deck or something like that that's just going way, way bigger than you are. So what I've tried to do is combo with the card that I've really enjoyed, which is Student of Ojutai.
Well, that's really turned out to be a deck this week.
Yes.
Right? Is really just like this Student of Ojutai, Ojutai Summons, Ojutai's Breath.
Yep.
Skywise Teachings.
That we need to talk about that one.
Oh, I'm just telling you. I mean, this is stuff that
I'm going to let you finish this thought, and then.
But I'm just saying. But in general, just this deck that feels like a prowess deck from the previous draft format. But yeah, just this spells based deck
rebound
that's going to rebound, get value, and really just kind of like outrace you in the opposite direction in terms of. I'm just going to gain a ton of life, and then I just have this inevitability on my side in terms of flyers, or I've got a big dragon that I'm going to draw that's got some kind of hexproof ability. I've got card drawing.
Sight beyond sight.
Yeah,
you been on that one much?
I haven't had a chance. I really haven't had a chance. Here's the thing.
I think I've played that the blue 7 times now.
So the blue decks I've played have fallen into 2 camps.
Okay.
Blue black, and I don't need that card.
Okay.
I just don't need it. Like I have,
of course not.
I have youthful scholars. I have youthful scholars and Jeskai Sages and
way better.
Vulture Saven and whatever those cards.
The board.
All my card draw is
built in. Yeah.
Is doing something. Or I've been blue white flyers with like Ojutai Breath at the top to sort of just like lock down like a racing attacker or an airy bowmaster, or whatever, and just get in with my Misthoof Kirans and my Ojutai Interceptors and my pristine Skywise or whatever it is, and so I. So
you're not interested in Sight Beyond Sight?
I'm interested. I'm interested in it in
for
theory,
those decks,
but in those 2 decks I haven't really had room for it.
So I've been playing it.
It's really good in the Student of Ojutai deck.
I think it's pretty good. Yeah, like the 4 mana. So by the way, Sight Beyond Sight's the look at the top 2 cards of your library. You get one of them down, and it's 3 and a blue for a sorcery. And my reservations about the card before having played it was the mana cost. Paying 4 mana to not affect the board that's a tough sell. So the way that I've discovered to make that doable is by putting in Control Shell, where you can play it not on turn 4. You need to still develop the board out on turn 4. You're not just running it in there. But it's a very basically it says draw 2 spells,
right?
Which is like double as good as divination, roughly. Like that's a big deal.
Sure.
But it also doesn't serve the role of like a divination type card where there are times in a control deck where you hit your 3rd land drop, haven't played a creature, and play divination to make sure you keep hitting your lands and then try to catch up later. Not a great spot, but that existed. And Sight Beyond Sight does not fill that role, unfortunately. Right. But if you need a card draw spell for the late game, it's good. It absolutely is good, and I have played it on turn 4. But the real thing is Student of Ojutai. I mean, I don't care what card you play. If you play a rebound spell with Student of Ojutai out, you're fine.
Yeah.
You're gaining a ton of
life. That's not where I thought you were. I thought you were talking about it from the opponent's perspective, and I thought that was going to be a different F sound you were completing.
Yeah, I mean, it's closer to that from their side because I've been on the wrong side of that, and it feels miserable.
I was on the wrong side of double Student of Ojutai yesterday.
Yeah, and what kind of deck were you playing?
I was playing some aggro deck.
Yeah, see, that's where it doesn't work.
And it was like,
I can't... red deck's fine. You just like stampeding over them and don't care.
And I can't get through this and then like my unblockable creature gets gets Breath of Ojutai's Breath, and gain 4 life and rebound and
forget it.
Yeah, I won that. I won that match, but that game.
But the two students was tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
So right now I have Student of Ojutai as underrated.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think that it's like a premium card in the set, but I think it's much better than people are giving it credit for right now. And I think that it should go a little bit higher in the decks that want it. Another card, Atarka Efreet.
That card's so good.
I have been smashing people with that card, and it comes around far too late for its position.
So I mean, I follow a fair amount of people on Twitter, but if you talk about limited Magic, I tend to follow you a lot more than if you talk about construct.
Totally.
Like random just people.
That's what Twitter's for.
And people like I noticed. In my imaginary Magic sidebar to Twitter, there's like hashtag Atarka Efreet right now. It's trending.
Is it?
Yeah, people have been talking about it a lot. They're like, wow, this card just continues to overperform.
It does. It's so good.
Multiple people in multiple different circles, all independently talking about like, holy cow, this card is just really good.
It has been a real performer. So Atarka Efreet, if you can't remember, is it's 4 mana, 3 and a white for a 5/1.
3 and a red.
A 3 and a red for a 5/1. And then it's got Megamorph, and you can flip it up for just 2 and a red.
Yeah.
And when you do, it pings something. You get to deal 1 damage to something. And, and of course, since it's Megamorph, it picks up the counter, so it ends up being a 6/2. And, I was using it yesterday in what I think would be its probably optimal case, which is a Temur Battle Rage deck. But I only had 1 actual Temur Battle Rage in my deck.
Yeah.
But I had multiple, like I had Tread Upon. I had the uncommon one from Fate Reforged, and I never can remember the name of it. You can use defensively or offensively. Yeah. And those were amazing because I had so many options. I could attack with it into another morph, and my opponent often was like, I'll just take it. I'm just like,
7,
bam, take 7. Because you
can hit the player too. You can do a point to the player.
Totally. And then, but many other times, kill your Hand of Silumgar.
Yeah.
Like, that's a real Magic card. Kill your Typhoid Rat.
Killing your Typhoid Rat is insane. Kill your Spirit Token off of your Sandstep Outcast.
Yep. Totally. That's a total... playing these type of decks, like any deck that's trying to run a 6/2 with combat tricks, Typhoid Rat is about the worst thing you can see.
Yeah.
It is just like your Stampeding Elker just cowers at the sight of a stupid Typhoid Rat. Yeah. And, having access to an Atarka Efreet to clear those out of the way while creating a massive threat for cheap 3 mana. Like, that rings a bell. Like, for me, that's almost a mistake level. Like, I'm looking at the developers like, really, guys? 3 to flip this up? Shouldn't it have been 4?
But by the way, there's other stuff. There's other stuff you can do, too. Killing a Shambling Goblin.
Yes.
Like, where you're like, you know what? I want that to die when I want it to die.
On my terms, thank you.
Yeah. Also, a situation where your opponent's got Palace Familiar and they're playing a Gurmug Drowner.
Yes.
Right? Like, imagine that situation. You're like, all right, you know what? I'm going to flip up my Atarka Efreet. I'm going to kill your Palace Familiar, draw a card before your Gurmug Drowner comes into play.
Yeah, you have to
now make a decision.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's a great spot to be in. Like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do as the blue player there?
Right.
What are you going to do?
I mean, it depends on my hand, but this is actually, I'm glad you brought this spot up because this is a really cool little trick. I actually did this yesterday. So my opponent, who is Toby, I think it was Toby, and he had similar things, Gurmug Drowners going on with Palace Familiars and such. And he had a Palace Familiar up, and he had left it back to block 2 turns in a row because I had something. And I had an Atarka Freet face down, and I had to decide what I want to do. And he's like, draws his card for the turn, plays his land or whatever, and he's like, attacks. I'm like, sure. Because I'm the beatdown player in this matchup. And he's like, attack you with my Palace Familiar. And I'm like, oh. I'm like, and this is, it's his only creature. And I'm just like, oh, okay. Right. So I'm like, I flipped up my thing. I'm not going to take the extra point.
Right.
I didn't want to use it to kill it, but now I see, oh, he's going to exploit. That's why he's attacking, because he doesn't plan on having it. So I might as well not take the extra point of damage. And I killed his thing, and he's like, okay, sure. Like, he seemed reluctantly happy about it, because, like, I used my effect to kill something that replaced itself, which he can't be too sad about. But then he's just, like, looking at his hand like, well, now what am I supposed to do? Because I need this 2/4, right? Because now he's got a 6/2 creature that needs to attack. And sure enough, plays the Drowner, no exploit, go. And I'm just like, yeah. That feels fine to me. So that's a cool trick. Now, you talked about Skywise Teachings a little bit ago.
Yeah.
So that's the 3 and a blue. It's like the Goblin slide.
Yeah, it's the Goblin side of the format, sure.
I'm still on that card's trash.
Sure.
Are you here to change my mind?
No.
Okay. I haven't played it. I've played against it a couple times and been like, this is not a good Magic card.
It's, here's, and you'll appreciate
By the way,
this.
we have to get this conversation out of the way while Luis is gone.
Yeah.
That's why I brought you in.
So, I mean, I don't think the card changed, but it's like, I looked at the card and we were sitting down to draft yesterday and I'm like, does anyone here like Skywise Teachings? And I'm just staring Blake down as I ask. Blake's like, oh yeah, that's one of my favorite cards.
Yeah, he loves that card.
He loves that card. So it's definitely a card that, again, and that card's fine. It's fine in that Student of Ojutai deck you were just talking about, right? Like, I mean,
rebounding,
but it's a
life.
bunch, it is a bunch of 4s,
Indeed.
But once you like get set up with that deck, and the thing is, Ojutai's Breath gives you the turn. You're like, oh, turn 3. Do that. Now I play my Student of Ojutai. Yes, I didn't get any life there, but I've slowed you down for a turn. I untap. I play Skywise Teachings. I protect this with this spell, or I do this. I make a bird. I make a Djinn, and then you just get set up, and eventually the game just pulls away in the wrong direction.
It should.
It is a card that you can play, right? There is a blue-white control deck you can play. The problem is, to me, that there's just not enough answers in that deck, like long-term answers.
No.
Like, I feel like you're just tapping stuff down, and like here's what always happens to me when I'm playing against that deck is I just have I'm like, okay, attack with my Summit Prowler now, and you're like, what are you gonna do? Put 2 Djinns in front of it? Are you gonna put 3 Djinns in front of it? Like, you've worked so hard for these Djinns.
And these Djinns are like supposed to be the big payoff, and you're supposed to take over. But I mean, I compare it to a card like Ojutai Summons.
Yeah.
You just get the 2 Djinns.
But they play Ojutai Summons in that deck too.
I know, but I'm just like, why would I, like, you can pick up an Ojutai Summons if you want an Ojutai Summons. This not like this hotly contested premium card that you can't get. It's double blue. Not every deck wants it.
Again,
I would do the Djinns. You don't have to mess around.
If I'm playing blue-white, I would rather play blue-white skies with actual creatures that I could put down on the ground and trade early if I need to. Oh, I don't need to. Excellent. Flip up my Mist of Hofkieran, get in for 3. Have mana up for for Center Soul, block your guy. You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather do that, but I think Skywise Teachings is a card to keep your eye on. I think if you end up with the right deck, I think in a Student of Ojutai deck, where you have like 2 Student of Ojutais and a bunch of spells, especially a bunch of rebound spells. I think it's fine probably to play one.
I think Skywise Teachings is a card to keep your eye on in the same way that a grizzly bear is something you want to keep your eye on when you're out hiking. Like, avoid. You do not want to engage with this thing.
Like the card looked fine to me.
It did to me. Oh, in Blake's.
In Blake, hands. Yeah. It looked
if anybody
fine.
Could make it work, he could play that card like a violin.
It looked fine. It didn't look great. I think that the 2 things that you want to do in blue, whether it's exploit or flyers, are both better.
Okay.
But I'll tell you a card that did catch my eye yesterday, and it was not on my radar at all. Mm-hmm. Not on my radar at all. It's Blake's other pet deck.
Okay.
Impact Tremors.
What? Oh, the creature enters, they ping them thing? Is that
I'm not allowed to curse, right? I'm just not. We don't curse on this. I can say poopiest though, right?
Yes.
It is just the poopiest of cards, right? Hagon's also on it.
He loves
Hagon's team.
That kind
like a bunch of guys who've been drafting a lot. Just like this super aggressive red-black dash deck.
Okay.
With like 2 or 3 impact tremors.
What?
You can get him super late.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, and they're just like dashing. And like dash in my spiteful imp. Take 2 in the air, pick it up. Like, there were game states yesterday where there's 2 impact tremors on the board. The board is locked down. And Blake's like, dash guy. No attacks. Take 6. Pick them up. Go.
Oh, my God. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Wow. I lost to that card once, and I thought, oh, that's kind of a junker. But
it is a junker.
But it gives me this... It definitely gave my opponent wasn't abusing the card at all. But I did remember thinking like, if my life total got low and I don't have any other way to gain life, that could be a card that just says like, look, Marsh, you can't just sit there forever, buddy.
It is a ticking clock that might be attached to a bundle of C4.
No, that card has my eye for sure. That is a lot of potential. I can see that working.
It's a card that I had completely disregarded.
Totally.
Had multiple people from multiple different draft circles come up to me like, so where are you on the Impact Tremors deck? And like the first time someone said it to me, I'm like, get out of here with that crap, you know? And then someone else said it to me and I'm like, oh, are you kidding me? And then I lost to it.
Right.
You know, from a third person playing it. And it was kind of interesting. And there's just some really poopy cards that go along with it.
Oh, totally.
Where
all the
people are like
cards.
Collateral damaging you.
Oh God, I can't even do this.
Foul tongue shrieking you.
Yeah. I'm not in on all that. But
here's the thing.
This is where Spirit of Vojatile looks amazing.
It's a classic Jank deck.
Can that deck beat any type of life gain?
No, but there's not a lot of life gain. There's not a lot of life gain. There's Resupply, which is not a card.
Right.
And Student of Ojutai, which is fine.
Which was not a card.
If you do it now,
Student's great, and then there's a few rares or whatever.
Yeah, and there's the bolster card from the last set. Gain 4 life. Yep. Bolster 2.
Yeah.
That card.
There's a Regent. There's big.
There's some life linkers.
Yeah.
But there's
life
not
linkers. Yeah.
There's not a ton.
Those seem very good against that strategy.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
But you know what? Those cards, they do also get to play good cards too, like Bathe in Dragonfire and Roast, and bad cards like Collateral Damage, where you're like, oh, okay, dash this guy in, take 1, collateral damage that or you,
That's right.
And that deck is like
that has my attention. That could be a real thing.
Here's the thing in my head. I have like this very orderly blackboard on the wall with all my timing for how I play all these different decks. Uh-huh. And then, someone starts playing that deck against me, and I run out to the hall, smash the glass, grab the fire axe, and just start, hacking zombies. And, red lights and klaxons are going off. I go into total panic mode.
Totally. That is a panic-induced, especially with what we're trying to do.
I have no plan.
Yeah, look how cute I am. I have a Voltron Haven, and they're just like, yeah, you're dead. Okay, BDM, we've got just a few more minutes left. Okay. We've got an appointment, you and I, with our friends at Walking the Plains here. But I wanted to pick your brain about one other subject, not related to Dragons of Tarkir before I let you go. Okay. Modern Rotisserie Draft.
Yeah.
So we talked about this on the show. Luis and I had a chat about it. I put up the post. I put up a post on the blog with my initial thoughts before I started, and then
I saw that.
The halfway thing, links to the spreadsheet so anybody can see where our picks are at right now. Which by the time the show goes up, will be nearly finished. We're almost done with the draft.
I think I have 4 picks left.
Yeah, I think I have 6, but I got to get your take on it, dude, because you had one of the coolest, most shocking moments. There's 2 big peak moments that define our draft, this modern rotisserie draft. For me, the first was Rashad first picking Glimpse the Unthinkable with the comment flag planted.
Draft the Unthinkable.
Yeah. Unthinkable was completely descriptor of what happened. That was a big moment. It was like, whoa, Rashad's going off the deep end. And then you waited a little while. And you had the other big moment, and in fact, my favorite moment of the whole thing, which is you had a little change of pace somewhere in the middle. Talk to us about what your strategy was for the modern rotisserie cube.
So I'm doing two modern rotisserie drafts. I'm doing one with the Finkel draft group, and
the New York guys,
and then one with that we were doing with Randy and Rashad and you and those guys.
Sam.
And so the Finkel one started earlier, and it was like people were like, "Oh, we should do one of these." And I'm like, okay, yeah, let's.
You know, like 5 of them spawned out?
There's a lot of them. You can find, there's a Reddit thread that tracks all the Google docs.
I talked about it on the show, but yeah, like the East Bay guys did one. There's one in the LR subreddit. Anyway, go ahead.
And so I'm like, you know, I'm like, oh yeah, I'd do one. And then they started it. And they're like, and BDM, you're going first. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm like, does anyone else want this? I don't want it. I'm not ready. You know, and they're like, just please, we're all eager to do it. I'm like, fine, I'll take Splinter Twin. Right?
Play one.
I'm like, boom! I'm going to take Splinter Twin, and that's going to be my pick. And like, if you want to, you know, screw me here and draft something away from me, I'm ready. And so the draft goes. I have the first pick. It comes around, it comes back to me, and like, there's like 2 blue drafters. I think I don't remember the details now. And I'm like, whatever. And I take like Spellskite and Kiki Jiki. I think
sure,
or something like that.
Similar to what you did in ours.
Similar, but everyone's like, oh, you know, aren't you, someone else takes
Deceiver?
No. Blue one. Why can't I think of the Click? Vendilion Click.
Oh, takes Vendilion
Click. And they're like, oh, BDM used to take Vendilion Click. And I'm like, I don't know. So here's the thing. I'm like, I don't know that I want to be blue-red Splinter Twin. Like, You're going to fight for blue. The thing is, in red-white Splinter Twin, you get Heliod's Pilgrim and Idyllic Tutor to give you 3 copies of Splinter Twin.
Which is super important because remember, this is a singleton format.
Right. So you get that, and you get Kiki Jiki. So now you have 4 things to pair with what would normally be a Deceiver, Exarch, and Pestermite. But you don't need that because you can play Zealous Conscripts in red.
Yep.
You can play Midnight Guard.
Yep.
You can play Village Bell Ringers.
Ring some bells.
So now you have 3 creatures.
You can
play a Battered Golem.
Restoration Angel works
Restoration
with
Angel.
but not with Twin.
Right, but not with... So, like, there's enough things, like, you can have 4 creatures, 5 creatures, 4 basic things that make your copies in red-white. You don't get the counter magic, but you do get things like, again, Spellskite. You get Apostle's Blessing.
Sure, which is great.
Right? You get Shelter Effects.
Yep. Which are huge. Those are even maybe better than the blue counter spells that you can get to protect your combo.
And again, Apostle's Blessing, by the way. Huge. You know, if you go off and your opponent's like, activate Vidalcan Shackles in response, Apostle's Blessing protects against artifacts.
That's
too.
Dirty.
You're like 1 mana, pay 2 life, Apostle's Blessing, kill you.
Right. Okay. So you've outlined this.
So that's what I'm doing.
What about in ours? What did you do?
So I'm.
They don't know what you did.
So I'm doing that there, and then we start going blue-red. I start going blue-red in the other one. I'm on the wheel.
Concentrate on the.
All right. So now on ours, I'm blue-red.
You're blue-red Splinter Twin. You had planted your flag.
I get it.
Masterminds.
Yeah, I'm blue-red, and I'm like, and as we're going through it, I'm like, there's a bunch of blue drafters. Yes, there's also a bunch of white drafters. I agree, but I'm like
there's a lot of blue.
Yeah, almost.
Forsyth.
Yeah, almost none of the drafters who are drafting white want any of it. None of them want any of the cards. I'm like, man, I really like the red-white version. And in fact, I think red, white, blue is fine. I think that if you get the mana fixing, which I have in our draft, so I'm like, and I kind of tipped you off ahead of time that I was thinking about this.
Yeah, we had a little chat. And I'm like, what are you up to here?
And so like Aaron is just slow rolled, taking any sweepers.
Or any blue-white spells. He had dipped into blue-white, but he's just like, look.
Mana fixing, right?
Yeah, he's just like, look, man, I can get Sphinx's Revelation last if I want it. Like, I'm sure he's just sitting there on his throne cackling away.
And so
why wouldn't he be?
So I just decided I was going to be red-white, maybe Splash Blue, and I just went Supreme Verdict, Wrath of God on the wheel.
Was so amazing.
And I was like, and in fact, on Twitter, I just typed "wait for it."
Yeah, you did. Oh
my God, I got such a salty tweet from Aaron.
Oh yeah.
He's like, he's like, why do you want to be the 5th person in on white? Why would you do that? And Randy's like, I don't know why you wanted to be the 4th player in on white.
Yeah, so BDM just completely moves in on white. And then the really interesting part from my perspective was, so Aaron goes into like panic mode about picking up the blue and white fixing, and then also the blue and white spells. Yeah. The cards that he had exclusive right to up until that point now all of a sudden moved way up on his charts. But I don't think it was abundantly clear, at least not to me, and I don't know if to him either, that you were going to be red-white, which is what you just described.
Yeah.
But I think people thought, oh man, your mana is going to be awful. You're going to try to be Jeskai, and you have a little bit of fixing, but like there's not that much going around, and other people are taking it already. And I'm like, no, I think he's. It took me a while, and I had a chat with you that kind of solidified this for me. But I was like, oh, he's actually like maybe playing blue.
Yeah,
right? Like,
I still don't know. I still don't know if I'm going to play blue.
Yeah, like it's splash for you, but like you're actually red-white, which it completely changes everything. Like. Interestingly, Aaron, actually had the opportunity to probably sleep on some of those things longer, and he's taking Mystic Gates and all this stuff, and you're like, yeah, whatever.
I mean, I have enough sources that I can still play the Pestermite, the Deceiver Exarch, and the Supreme Verdict pretty easily if I want to. I also have Narset in that draft, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, I have Narset as well. So
you should.
So like I can set up as a long game control deck.
Yeah. I like being able to shift.
But by the way, I also had a sweet wheel in that draft too, where I wheeled Blood Moon Magus of the Moon.
Oh yeah, that was
which I have in both drafts also. And it's not probably a main deck thing, but like
I am almost completely impervious to that strategy.
That's fine.
I've taken 2 lands.
It's there. It's there against Sam.
Oh yes,
and Rashad, I think.
Rashad, absolutely. Randy has a ton of
fixing. He's
going to be playing it.
Yeah. I also
has a lot of ways to kill your guys, but
I think I also have Boyle in both drafts.
Do you?
Yeah.
You're not a nice person. All right, so before I let you go, BDM, give me a quick. What's your big picture perspective on Modern? You've done 2 now, or at least you're getting down on 2. What do you think the best strategy is? We had talked on our initial discussion. In Cleveland, and our group kind of came to the consensus that you either wanted to stay open or plant a flag. I originally was in the plant a flag camp. By the time we actually started, I moved firmly into the stay open camp because after sketching out some of the popular decks, I realized they just weren't as good as they were in Modern. This is more like a cube draft. If it's cube, I want to be open. Where did you fall?
I haven't played it yet, but I think Red White Twin is really flexible.
And you don't mind planting your flag there?
I don't. I think if you have a pick where you're going first or going 8th, and you can just go, this is what I'm going to do, and if no one's going to go into your blue, if someone's going to take a Vendilion click, you can be red-white, you can still be blue-red. But I think it's really solid. I think if you're red-white, I think you have just this very, very redundant deck. You get to take Wraths. You get to take all sorts of good hosers. You have Idyllic Tutor and Heliod's Pilgrim to find your Splinter Twin. You have Auramancer to get it back. You know what the last card
seems really good.
You know what the last card I'm going to take?
What's that?
My last pick, just speculative. I'm taking Profound Journey.
Oh yeah, the new
7 mana,
2 things back?
7 mana rebound. It's like, okay, we're going to go into this late control game,
funny.
and we're just going to wear each other out. It's like, okay, 7 mana, Profound Journey. Get back Pestermite.
Your play.
Yo.
On upkeep, you're dying. That's amazing. That's great. That's really funny. That could be a thing.
It could be. I don't know, but. Yeah, I feel like Red White Twin is really good. You get to play it just like a cube deck. Like the thing
that's what this is.
But that's what I'm saying is I get to play with 3 or 4 Wraths.
Yes.
Spot removal. I have multiple Planeswalkers.
Yes. Like Wraths with Planeswalkers is good enough in some cube.
Correct. I have ways to protect my combo. I have Wall of Blossoms, and I have not Wall of Omens.
Omens.
I just have all these good cards, and I don't care if you gain life. I don't care,
Yep.
I have the ability.
And also, you can just minus wins like whoops.
Yeah, and I can just kill you on.
A deck like mine,
I can just kill you on turn 4.
Fair. Yeah, mine's relative. I could be like Liliana Veil. We both discard turn 3. I'm like boom, and then you're just like flash in Pestermite.
Yeah.
I'm like oh,
Village Bellringers.
Bellringer got me. All right, BDM. Thanks for taking the time to hang. Where can people find you? What have you been up to?
Top 8 Games.
You making any new games lately? How's Emergence Genesis going?
Emergence Genesis is at the printer.
That's awesome. I got my my update from your Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Filled out my address and all that stuff. So
it's at the printer. The print and play version probably done like a month.
Now, quick question about that. The Kickstarter only went for 30 days.
Yeah.
Is there a way that people
if you go to
hear about it at the time can pick up?
Sure, if you go to urbanislandgames.com, you can order it there. I think on the Kickstarter now we have, with the backer kit, we have the page open so that you can support it there a little later. I just had my Walking Dead: The Prison game finally released from the prison of the LA docks.
Oh, yeah, that's been rough.
So there was a longshoreman strike, and the Walking Dead game is finally released. So that's going to be going to distributors and getting into stores soon.
Where can people find that?
That's going to be available at local game shops.
Game shops, okay.
Yeah. And you can find me online, Top 8 Games. In general, I have a couple of other things in the works, but I'm not ready to talk about them yet.
Okay.
Secret-ish yet. No, obviously I'm on the Top 8 Magic podcast with Mike. More or less every week.
I was listening to that today. All right, BDM, thanks for hanging. I always love to get your perspective early in the format, and we'll continue to develop these opinions as we progress through our coverage.
Do you think your opinion is going to change on Skywise teachings?
No.
How about on Impact Tremors?
No, I like Impact Tremors.
Okay.
I like the idea of it. That I see a lot of potential.
Okay, the one card, just Mirror Mockery.
Oh, yeah, Mirror Mockery.
I'm just telling you guys, if you have a chance to be blue-black with Mirror Mockery, just do it.
Okay.
It is so much fun. The card is insane. It's
exploiting your own thing.
Getting it on a Silumgar Butcher.
I totally forgot about Mirror Mockery.
Getting it on
I wanted to ask you about
it on a Silumgar Butcher, getting it on anything that has exploit is insane, but also putting it on an Aven Surveyor. How do you like that?
Oh, I like that a lot.
Flying. I've had it on a Sibsig Muck Dragger.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Yes, I am. I've already, on multiple occasions, muck dragged back a monastery lore master, to monastery lore master back my Mirror Mockery. Okay. Happened on multiple occasions already. Anyway, that card. Yeah, that card. You want to, if you are like Marshall and I, and you just want the valuiest, greediest, just like long game, you just want to lean back in your chair and steeple your fingers on your belly and go, that was a really good game. In the just greediest, most corpulent way possible, that is the card for you.
If you guys want to find me on Twitter, I'm Marshall_LR. Of course, the show is brought to you every week by ChannelFireball. Make sure you check them out for competitive prices and a huge selection of singles along with a bunch of free content. Next week, we're back to business. We'll get Luis back on the show and get an idea of how testing went for the Pro Tour and get a more fully developed look at what this format looks like after we've watched the pros do it and BDM and I, Luis and everybody have had a chance to draft it even more. Until next week, though, we'll see you next time.